Chicagoland. You've won at the dirt track. What's it going to take for you to win here, other than luck?
Great
You've
question.
got the skill.
I don't know the equation either, other than everything has to go right. I mean, I have to do my job right. The team has to do their job. It all has to come together. So,
Yeah.
I feel like every week we're gaining momentum and gaining confidence. So for me, on the driving side, I'm way more confident than I was at Gainesville. I'm still very realistic that there's a lot of things that have not happened yet that are going to happen during a run that Matt's went through and that you got to be ready for. The hard part is when you haven't went through it yet, you don't know how to predict and plan for it. So you can sit there and go, okay, when this happens, this is what you do, but you really don't know until you get in that situation. So honestly, all those variables that I know are still in play that haven't happened yet, I just literally, I don't think you guys will understand why. I'm just pushing them aside. Like, it's just no point in worrying about them until it happens.
Exactly. You just have to do your own race the way you do it every single time. And if something happens or when something happens, you just need
Instinct's
to
gonna
know
have
what
to take
to do.
over at that point, in all honesty. So it's versus thinking about it and trying to plan for everything. It's literally just keep focusing on the variables that I'm in control over and trying to make those better. Matt and Leah both have been fantastic teachers. So, it's like having, I tell everybody every week, I'm like, it's having the Cliff Notes version when we were in high school and we had to read books. We get the Cliff Notes side. And there's an easy way to fix that. When you're out, you're out.
I know.
She's not going out all the way.
Nope.
She's going back.
Well, she doesn't have to be out, she at least.
But it's basically like a Cliff Notes version. I mean, you essentially learn from what they say, and anytime I have a question, I got two awesome people that are, amazing at what they do that can sit there and guide you down the right path. So that's an advantage for me.
One of the things you talked about last year that got you hesitant to want to get in a top fuel car was the fact that you couldn't feel the tires smoking, you couldn't feel something was wrong with the engine. Having Matt and Leah in your corner, what tips and tricks did they give you that you were able to learn about what to feel in these race cars, let you know, oh hey, this thing's about to go up?
In that particular instance that you're talking about, nothing. They just said it just takes laps. And everybody, I mean, Austin Prock has said it, Ron Capps has said it, Antron has said it. All these guys can't be wrong. And that's the hard thing, is it's just a feel that you have to acquire. The good thing is, this year, every time something has happened, and we had a lot of things early in the season, the first two events, that tire shake and smoking at different spots. The spot that was the hardest, Neil, the one day that spot happened and it spun the tires and I felt it and got out of it, he's high-fiving me when he came back, and it's a failed run, but he's high-fiving me in the trailer because he's like, that's the hardest spot to catch it. And he pulls it up on the graph, shows me, and says, you did a great job catching it. So that just gives me confidence, and instead of being nervous and worried about those scenarios, now you don't embrace them necessarily because you don't want them, but at the same time you at least have a little bit of confidence that if something happens that you're going to be able to catch it.
And the last time I talked to you as well was back at Gainesville, and I asked you what races were you looking forward to, and you specifically pointed out the 2 4-wide events because nobody else really likes those, but that's something that you really enjoyed. How were those 2 races for you? Did you have fun at those events? Was it something that really spoke to you?
Yeah, I didn't say everybody doesn't like them, but there's some drivers that don't. They like what they're used to, and all of this is new and unfamiliar to me. So if you get your competitors to be uncomfortable with the situation, then that evens and shortens that gap between you. So I enjoyed it. It was somebody goes, hey, it's different. I'm like, you guys forget I did this in the alcohol car last year. So to me, every time we got up there, especially in eliminations, I was excited and revved up about it because I'm like, this is where people can trip up and make mistakes, and I feel very confident at the 4 wides. So I enjoyed it.
Another thing too is that you were trying to learn about getting comfortable in this car and getting used to the runs. You only had about, I believe, 9 runs going into Gainesville from beginning of the year till then. With the last few races that you've had since Gainesville, where are you currently at getting used to driving a top fuel dragster?
A lot more comfortable, and it just takes time, obviously, but literally, I mean, every run that you make. And I think the thing that I notice is it's not necessarily from one run to the next on the same day. It's when you go back to the hotel or the bus and you sleep on it, you come back the next day and you notice that you're making adjustments that you didn't even think about. So it's when it happens. I mean, we'd get out at the top end and you catch your breath and you get in the tow vehicle and they're like, "How was it?" I'm like, I don't know. But 5 minutes later, after we get back in the pit, then all the stuff, like your brain starts slowing down and then it remembers everything that happened. So I feel like that's kind of what happens here as well. I mean, you keep gaining and it's day to day versus necessarily run to run.
Also, I wouldn't be remiss as well. The big story of the month right now is what's going on down in Indianapolis with Kyle Larson running the double as literally the only person who have completed that challenge. What advice would you have for him, especially considering the fact that he's about to go take the 4 most stressful laps of his life come tomorrow?
Well, I've been out of them so long that I don't have any advice for them because there's so much that's different. They have so many tools in the car with weight jackers and all the things that they have at their leisure, sway bars and everything. We didn't have all that. So he'll be fine. He's with a great group there. He's got great mentors that are helping him. He's going to be in good shape. He just needs to go out and do what he needs to do.
And then Matt, the question I got for you is, over the course of this season, we've seen a real change, I would feel, in competition in funny car. What was used to be you, Caps, and Height, when you saw Task again towards the last end of the season, you kind of seen that explode. Before there was a question of if J.R. Todd, Chad Green, and Paul Lee could really start to step it up and answer to you guys on a week-to-week basis, and now we've seen that happen. It's almost where you have 6 cars going into each event that could possibly win that race. How has that changed over the course of the season so far?
Well, I think obviously funny car is just super competitive. Like when you looked at the last race there and the last 2 4-wides, I mean those 4 cars that were in each individual of those races between Vegas and Charlotte, they're just all heavy hitters, man. And it's just that 1 4-wide in Vegas. I mean, we were talking about thousandths of a second. That was the difference between winning and losing. And it just it's incredible how everybody has the same parts and pieces, and the crew chiefs dump them out in a pile, and they pick this one and pick that one. And I'm going to use this, and we're going to use this shoe and a blower and this and that. And these crew chiefs get them to all run so close to each other and be so competitive. It's a very, very humbling sport. I think that obviously I won multiple championships and with different tuners and different things like that. But I think that at the end of the day, it's still you set a certain bar and a certain standard for yourself. And last year we've already won 3 races by now, and this year we've only won 1. And I don't feel like that we're where we need to be, as far as competitive side of things. But you get what you get, you know what I mean? Like, you got to keep working hard, and everybody's working hard behind the scenes, that's not us, you know what I mean? And we're working hard too. But like at the end of the day, sometimes, I think it's so competitive out there, and everybody has to be so driven and so focused to turn those 4 win lights on. It's just like there's no room for error. You know what I mean? Like, as a driver, you have to step up. You have to have a great light. You have to keep it in the groove. As a crew chief, you have to go up there with just the screws turned all the way open, man. I mean, there's no like give me's out there in funny car right now, and it's just so competitive. I mean, you have really truistically 6 to 8 cars that can win on any given Sunday at any time, and so. And it just sometimes it comes down to you as a driver, and you having a great day and you're up and you're on the wheel and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes it comes to your crew chief, man. He's just going up there a little bit more aggressive, that kind of stuff. So it just everybody has to do their job, and like you said, you see these other cars step up, but a lot of that's because we all have the same parts and pieces, and the rules are so tough. There's not much room for innovation. I think it's kind of funny because I thought for sure with Tony, coming from the NASCAR side of things, like we'd drag our stuff over there to his NASCAR shop and be like, oh dude, we found so much, but his engineers came back and said, look, there's not much we can do here, man, within the rules. And so, you give all these crew chiefs enough time with those same parts and pieces, it's going to be competitive. It's going to come down to where it's just so close, and that's what we're seeing right now. Funny car is super competitive. It's a crazy class already, that's already tough to drive, but these crew chiefs they're all been working with the same parts and pieces within the same rules for the last couple of years, and that's why you see everybody have, instead of 2 or 3 cars that are super competitive, we have 6 or 8 cars that are super competitive. So it's really, really hard to have a competitive advantage out there other than the driver, other than the crew chief, and it's really kind of a gut check of like, how your crew chief wants to go up there and how much, like, how big of balls he got, you know what I mean? I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's like, that's really what it comes down to nowadays is like going up there with you being on kill as a driver and your crew chief being on kill, because it's not like you got some magic smoking gun that we're going to be out running everybody with, and it's just, you just have to be aggressive and you have to take those chances. And, it's kind of like Babe Ruth, he struck out a lot, but he hit a lot of homers too, swinging at the ball. So, it's a very, very humbling sport. It's a very, very humbling class, and you feel like you should be just going out here and running away with it, but it's just like you're lucky to be in the mix of it.
I've got a question about bodies, because you're driving the Charger SRT Hellcat, you've got the Toyota GR Supra, you've got the Mustang, and you've got the Camaro SS. How much of a difference is it in terms of the air on those
that's
four
a great
cars?
question for Nero, our engineer that we work with closely with Dodge. But I think that we're still very, very competitive. I know Dodge is looking to advance in what we do with our air design and different things like that within the rules. But it's still the Toyota. I mean, you come out, you look at it, it just looks sleek and fast. You know what I mean? And there's everybody has a box they have to stay within, and within that design. But it's just kind of one of those things where there's always room for improvement, and that's what I think that I like about Dodge is they're always on the leading edge. They have the wind tunnels, they have the designs, they have the engineers, they have all the stuff that we need to do to run up front. It's just a matter of having the time and the money to implement what we need to do to come out with something new. Everything evolves, right? Like, so I'm excited to see what Dodge has in store for the future. Obviously, Toyota just came out with a body last year. It's one of those things where I know that our guys are probably working hard behind the scenes to come up with something here in the future. So we'll have to see what that is, but nonetheless, it's always going to be competitive, and it's always, one comes out with one and one wants to come out with another. And, I think that there's always, like, the last body that we had from Dodge before this body was a massive improvement as far as for a driver goes, because now the windshields are more panoramic. You can see out of the windshield a lot better. When I tested that body years ago, massive improvement in aerodynamics and stuff like that. So Nero, our guy, does a great job with that kind of stuff. So whatever those guys do come up with in the future, I feel like it'll be something that's going to be great.
Do you feel that the Dodge is at a disadvantage at all because it's an older?
Well, I wouldn't say disadvantage. I would say that there's some room for improvement, you know what I mean? But that's like anything, right? I'm sure the Toyota guys came out and they were like, well, we got a new body, but we could have changed this, this, and this, right? But so I think there's you have to play within the box that NHRA sets you up to, and that those are what those rule designs are, and this is what we're allowed to do. There's a lot of times when we can ask, hey, this is a safety advantage. It's not so much performance, but we have to do these certain things to make sure we have enough downforce and enough safety and enough to be able to drive the race car. It can look cool, that's great, but if it ain't drivable, it doesn't help you, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes in behind the scenes, working with NHRA hand in hand to make sure that we're first of all safe, and then second of all that we're within the rules to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Earlier today, we had the Don Shumacher Celebration of Life down by the Media Center near the warm-up lanes. I'm not sure if I saw you there or not. I believe you were, but what were your thoughts being at that event and reflecting on what Don Shumacher meant to your life and your career, considering the fact that he was that guy that really gave you that big shot in the NHRA and helped lead you to the point where you're standing right now as a four-time champion of the series and one of the top guys in the class?
Yeah, obviously Don was a big role in me kind of like being here in NHRA. I had my own team, and I crossed over in Indy, and I out-qualified Forrest Selzy and Tommy Johnson Jr. on their own dime, doing their own thing with Paul Smith, and right place, right time. I'm not sure, but Don comes through my pit, and he was like, "Who are you, and what's the deal?" And he said at the time Gary Selzy was retiring, and him and Gary weren't getting along very well, and Gary wanted to go back and start his own, or help run his own company with his brother and stuff, and it was just a timing thing that worked out where he was like, he was retiring, why don't you sell your stuff and come work for me, and I was kind of blown away, honestly, and so right place, right time. But we signed up a contract. I flew into Richmond, didn't even go to the race, but signed up a contract there in the airport, and then kind of started my career the following year. But that was back in like 2008, when the economy got bad, sponsors were going away, so it was a real rocky start to my career, and wasn't sure if I was even going to be out here, And you know, it was one of those things where we signed on a sponsor called Brake Safe with Rich Battolini. And it was kind of, not to air dirty laundry, but just to show you the type of guy Don was as well. The sponsorship fell through, second race of the year. You know, the guy bounced a multi-million-dollar check, you know what I mean? And so we're looking like, well, do we go on the sidelines or what? So my father put in a couple $1,000,000, and then Don put in a couple $1,000,000. And he said, look, we're going to do this until we find sponsorship, until we make this work. And so, I mean, I have respect for that he didn't just park me and just said, hey, look, you know, too bad, so sad, you know, come see you when you find a bunch of money, you know. So he believed in me enough to where he kept, you know, some of his own money invested in it until we found sponsorship, and hopefully paid himself back after that. I'm sure he did, but it's just kind of one of those things where he kept me out there, man, and he had an opportunity to park me right off the rip. And you know, we ran for a championship that second year, and then won it the second year, that was out there with him, you know. So you know, beginner's luck or whatever. He saw something in me and allowed me to do what I do, and you know, we're here now and just won a championship with Tony Stewart with TSR, and you know, so the proof's in the pudding. You know, we got the right people, the right parts, the right stuff in place to go out there and run for championships. And I think it's you know, no different than what Don did. You know, Tony's starting a legacy over here as well, and you know, I think it's a lot of great things in the future.
And then the question I also have for Tony is, beginning at the start of the year, you were in that middle of that learning curve of trying to get used to the car. Ever since Charlotte and Vegas, you guys have really started to hit that stride in the same way that Leah did back in Norwalk. And now it's not a question of whether or not are you going to make it down the track, but whether or you're going to go number one qualifier and actually get the round win. Where are you guys currently at on that kind of synergy level with the crew, on the confidence level of being able to get it done, and where are the next steps for you guys to get ready for these hot summer tracks, you get ready for Norwalk, Virginia, and Bristol?
Yeah, I think it's really in the crew chief lounge up there. I mean, the guys, the good thing is I've known these guys ever since we formed TSR here on the Nitro side, so I've been around the crew. It's not like we're having to learn each other. We already know each other, so it's literally about, you know, the challenges of trying to figure out how to get a 55-pound heavier driver down the racetrack, you know, versus from Leah to myself. So it's been a challenge for Mike and Neil. I feel like they're starting to find things that it likes to get it going. They just, every time they keep learning something. I mean, even if you try something and it doesn't work, the failure in that also is a success, because it gives you a direction. Tells you which way not to go. So it's just all part of the learning process. And you know, it's not like an Indy car race or a sprint car race where you got multiple opportunities to try different things on a race weekend. You just don't have that opportunity. You're qualifying every time you're on the racetrack, and then when you go into eliminations, you're damn sure not trying new things. So it's hard to get outside the box. It's been hard for them to kind of figure out what the sweet spot is for having me as a driver in the car, but keep gaining on that. They keep gaining momentum, and you know, we all communicate well. We all know each other, so that part of it's super easy. The communication is probably the easiest part of it. It's just literally figuring out what this car wants with me in it.
And you talked about the challenges that you guys have qualifying with the fact that the first run you get on the racetrack is whether or not you guys might make the show that weekend. A lot of people always talk about with Indy that is the most stressful version of qualifying out there. As someone who's competed in both that format of qualifying as well as now competed in this for the last couple of years, where does the stress level and anxiety stack up comparing those two together?
Well, I think it's the same but different. The thing that's different about it is it's 10 miles at Indy that you got to run. You can't hold your breath for 10 miles. You can hold your breath for 4 seconds here. You can't do it for 10 miles. And essentially that's what those guys, you know, I think one of the biggest things is those guys have each of the long straightaways to think about and make decisions. And literally there's a windsock on the pylon on the front stretch. There's another windsock at the top of the bleachers into turn 3. And the drivers are every lap looking at that windsock to see if the wind direction has changed before they get to turn 1 and turn 3. Because if that wind changes direction 90 degrees, it affects how the car drives. So literally they're making decisions on their weight jackers and everything else that they have at their disposal in the car during that run. It is a very busy 10 miles where we have a very busy 1,000 feet. So it's drastically different.
And then also you got to return back to Top Alcohol Dragster for the Cleeson Cars event. How was that for you getting to go back to where you started I believe last year?
Yeah, I love racing with McPhillips family. I mean, Rich and Richie and then the entire crew, they're family to me. So having the opportunity, this was kind of a long break to have 2 off weekends in between, and to be able to fill that the first weekend with that event with the alcohol car, I mean that's what I do. I mean there were people there that are nitro people, and they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm a racer, we race, so qualify on Friday with the alcohol car, go run a Crown Vic, Friday night. That's just what we do. So it was nice for me personally to kind of get back in that swing of who I am as a driver, and I think it was, we had Ryan McGilvery was working on it. We had 2 other guys from Scrappers that were working on the car that I drove. So it was all nitro guys on my car, which you still had Rich and Richie, guiding the ship. But I think it was just fun to kind of get outside the box a little bit and race with a family that I had a lot of success with last year.
And also, what was it like kind of on that culture shift going from these professional kind of races with NASCAR, IndyCar, and NHRA, and then going to these Cletus and car events with these rowdy YouTubers and the crazy fans that they bring to each event that they go to?
It was refreshing because there wasn't politics, there wasn't all the demands. It was literally just show up and have fun and drive. I didn't even get to qualify the car because we were in our 3rd round of qualifying with the alcohol cars. So I literally started at the tail with no practice and just got to go in and drive it. I told somebody, I said, it's really nice after all these years of racing to be able to go to a race that you didn't really care what the result was as long as you had fun. And we don't get that luxury. We're so uber and ultra competitive at everything that we do that it's nice to once in a while go drive race cars. And even though it's a Crown Vic, everybody had the same Crown Vic, so you're just trying to be that much better than them no matter how fast you're going. But it was really nice to just be able to go to an event. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out, but you got to have fun doing it.
And then last question for me, and Matt, you can answer it too if you have an answer for it. Memorial Day plans, you going to Indy or you going to Charlotte?
I'm going to Indy, and I'm going to Indy because of Kyle. I want to be there and watch Kyle run the Indy 500. It's not that I don't want to be in Charlotte, but I don't have any ambitions of doing both. I've done it twice already, and I know what that day's like.
Try to do it a 3rd time.
No, I'm good.
No, maybe like 2003.
Yeah, we thought about it. But it's no. I really want to be there. I really want to be there to watch Kyle run that. It's this could be the one and only time. You never know if somebody like him's going to do it, and I want to be there to be supportive of him and see how he does.
I was going for the snake pit, man.
There you go. That's the right answer. And also, I guess, last final question. AJ Foyt, last 2 years have had really good cars. 14 cars came really close to winning that race. What would it mean to you to get to see the 14 car go back to victory lane in Indianapolis?
Be huge. I mean, I think it would be huge for so many people and so many fans. Some of the younger generation fans wouldn't understand it, and it wouldn't mean anything to them. But those that have been around the sport and been around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway know what AJ means to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar racing. So talked to Santino last week, and we were working on a TV show series with Danny Sullivan, so I got to interview AJ as well. But then afterwards, Santino was there and got to talk to him about it. And it was nice to see how the level of confidence he has going into it. And I think he's got the right mindset, so if they can give him the right car, I think he's got a great shot. Cool.